For this part of the assignment on color wheel, you're going to need a palette with some color. I will most likely have these set up, but if you need to add paint to your palette, I want to show you how to do it. First of all, you need to make sure you have tempera paint. Tempera paint, okay? Tempera paint. Don't get acrylic paint, get tempera paint. So double check your bottle. Sometimes they get a little mixed up. So make sure you have tempera paint. So we're going to lay out the primary colors because you're going to do a lot of mixing. So if this is going to be one palette at each table, therefore I'm going to put a little extra paint down. 3 or 4 people or whoever's in your group will be needing this, so that's why I have extra paint. The magenta, and you notice this is not a normal blue. This is called turquoise or cyan, and the magenta rather than the red make a much nicer palette for mixing colors. Use this in place of red. If you use red, your purple is going to get really kind of dark and almost black. Okay, yellow is yellow. So you're going to put down your primary colors. Again, I will have these set up for you in whatever form. And you're going to need some black. I know those of you who know me know that that's kind of against my rules, but I'm going to let you use black a little bit. You don't need much. It's super strong. And then, of course, white. And if you've taken your notes, you know why you need the white and the black, because you're going to make tints and shades. So this is your palette set up. It should be over on the counter each day when you come in. If you need to refill paint throughout the class, you may do so after a certain point, after I've okayed and trained you properly. Okay, so before you start painting, you need to make sure your color notes are finished. This is done in colored pencil. You're doing this by yourself. Okay, if you need review, color basics, I've got it up on Google Classroom and Canvas. Here's your color basics video. All of these are going to be done in colored pencil, and then a color wheel, just a basic color wheel in colored pencil as well. When you're done with that and you've been assigned groups, each person in your group is going to take 2 or 3 colors, maybe even 4 colors, depending on how many people are in your group. Every one of these colors needs to be assigned. One person should not have just the primary colors or the secondary colors. There's a lot of mixing involved down here. So maybe each person take a primary and a secondary and a tertiary or an intermediate color. These are intermediates or tertiaries. But every one of these colors needs to have a person assigned to them. If somebody's absent, figure it out. You still need to have these done. So somebody step up and paint the pages. So this is what the pages look like. So I'm going to move this aside a little bit. And I'm going to set this over here. So here's the pages. So you're going to need a mixing palette. It probably won't be a plate this big, but it will be a mixing palette. First of all, put your name here and the name of your group or the number of your group. Okay. Also, if you're painting only your assigned pages from this page. Okay. So I'm going to start with blue. I'm going to label it blue. I might go through and label each one of my pages before I start. There'll be a whole bunch in the box over by the door, right where they always are. I'll label blue, and maybe I'll do blue, yellow, green, or something like that. And I'll label all my pages, okay? My group is group 00, because I can make it into eyeballs. So blue, I'm gonna start with blue. So what I need is I need the pure hue. You've already done some notes on that. Don't paint off of this palette. Scoop what you need and put it on your palette. This is messy. I don't want to scoop any other colors yet. So, things you need, the same old things you always need is some water, paper towels, your paper, and your palette. So make sure you have water. You're going to rinse it. Don't scrape the brush or don't tap the brush on the side because that tends to splash. Okay, scrape it on the side like this. Okay? So I'm going to set my water aside, blot my brush because I don't want this to be real juicy and gooey. And I'm going to scoop up some white, put it over here, clean my brush, blot my brush, and a tiny bit of black, tiny bit. And I'm going to put it way over here because I don't want it invading all my other stuff. You're going to use this palette several times, so don't use up all the space. So my pure hue, that's the pure color, the most intense color, I'm going to lay it down and paint this whole section. As I'm painting, I might find that I need more color. And it's easy because I still have just that color on my brush. Don't worry about the strokes. This is just copier paper, so don't overdo the painting. Get it, if it's painted, leave it, okay? That's good. Get out to the edges as best you can. We're going to be cutting this out later. Now I do need more blue paint. You can see that. So I'm going to scoop a little more and scoop it down. A tint, if you remember correctly from the notes you took, a tint is when you add white to a color. So I'm going to not just add a bunch of white to this because I need it. This is kind of my home base. So I'm going to add, actually, I'm going to clean my brush because when you're painting, listen to this carefully, when you're painting, you always want to start with the lightest color. If I start with a dark color and try to add a bunch of white to it, I'll have a half gallon of paint before I know it. So I want to start with my lightest color. I'm going to scoop a little bit of that and put it here. And now I just need a teeny bit because I don't want it to be too dark. I want it to clearly be a tint of blue. You can always add more. Squish your brush a little bit. Keep your area that you're mixing your paint in pretty small. And there I have a nice tint of blue. Paint it. Notice I did not mix my colors on the paper. I mixed my colors on the palette. Now a shade is when I add black to a color, but that's no white, so I need to make a new spot. So I'm going to start with the lighter color. Remember that rule? Scoop up, start with the lighter color, and just, I mean, you don't need much black at all. It's super strong. It's still your color, a little bit at a time, your color should still look blue. Okay, but it's going to be a darker blue. Can you see the difference between these? Maybe a little more black. You see, I just did a little bit at a time. And now my shade. Scoop it. It should still look blue. It didn't make quite enough. So I'm going to try to squeak it out of here. All right, got to do some more. Again, notice I'm mixing on my tray. See, I got too much black. See how dark that is? It's almost not blue anymore. So now I need to go add more blue to it. Okay, still blue, but much darker. Kind of a nice blue. This is the only way you should use black. And really, you can get this color without using black. Okay, so now I need to go with a neutral color and a dull color. Neutral means you can't quite tell if it's blue. You can't quite tell if it's orange. Because to make the neutral or the dull, you need to make, I'm gonna scoop some red here. Forgot to take that. To make a neutral, you need to have the opposite color or its complement. You should learn that from your notes. Okay, now I'm ready. So I need to make a little orange. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Okay, I'm gonna need a little more orange for this project. Okay, now I'm going to take some of this blue. Not this blue or this blue because this has white in it, this has black in it. Dot. A little bit at a time. So this is not the right direction. Sorry. I'm going blue with a little bit of orange in it. I got mixed up. So I still want this to appear blue, but I want it to be a duller blue. So that's going to be my dull blue. That turned green, didn't it? Ah,